All right. So I was very much not expecting to do this tonight. I had no intention of doing this tonight, but I desperately wanted to talk about this. Just because I don't know when I'll get a chance to actually sit down and talk about this in the future. I wanted to do like some big epic like well edited video about everything, but honestly, I just figured, hey, you know what? I'm going to sit in front of a screen. That worked for my TikTok about about Sephiroth's bangs, Sephiroth's bangs. And so I figured, hey, you know what? We'll just do that here. We'll talk about this random thing about Metal Gear Solid 5 for no reason other than the fact that I've been thinking about it for months, and I might as well do a thing because I can't do anything else right now. Basically, I can't do deliveries until my dad gives me the insurance stuff, and I don't think he'll do that until I pay him for the car. So here we go. We're just gonna talk about this. All right. So Metal Gear Solid 5 is 90% like 90% fluff. It's just 90% BS. Basically, when you read into the story, it's just absolute nonsense. It's basically all just a bunch of stories told by a man with brain damage. Like, look at that man up there in the top left. Look at or top right. Look at him. He's imagining a butterfly. It's so spelt out in the game, and it's absolutely funny to me that I feel like for about 10 years I saw Kotaku and a bunch of websites talking about, Quiet's just a male fantasy. Oh, she's just the worst part about the male gaze. And I'm like, she is the literal definition of a male fantasy. Did no one else pick up on that? I thought I saw people on Reddit and other places picking up on that. I thought I saw people talking about that. But yeah, basically this rant, hi Viking, by the way, this rant is basically just Quiet doesn't exist. That's it. That's all this rant is. I've said it on other rants before, but I need to bring up some points and I need to talk about some things. So let's talk about them. First off, the butterfly motif is very common across all of the Metal Gear games starring Big Boss, also known as Naked Snake, starting with the moment that he gets shot in the eye until afterwards. And through the rest of the series, you see it in Metal Gear Solid 3, where he tries to catch a butterfly, and he can't because he no longer has the depth perception he needs, so he's not seeing things correctly, thus twisting his vision. And then he makes a butterfly. He makes his own reality. He makes a butterfly that he can catch out of the C3 before he plants it on the tank, showing that he's basically just going to start feigning ignorance a little bit and just start, just living his life, living stuff for himself. So it's kind of funny in Metal Gear Solid 3 because things start getting a little bit more fantastical, which is funny considering the all of the bosses we fight. But like the stakes get higher. We start fighting a lot more people. Things start getting a little bit more legendary at the end. And he even starts imagining things like the flowers are white and then stained red when he shoots the boss. But then you find out when he lets go of the petals that they're actually white. They're not red. He was imagining them red because he shot the boss and he just saw the blood red petals, and that's how he was viewing the world. And it's funny because like that continues into Peace Walker, that continues into him imagining the boss is actually the AI. They even have the butterfly. It's like right here next to my face, the butterfly logo on Peace Walker. That's it. That exists. And then when we get to Metal Gear Solid 5, oh, it just increases. We get so many butterfly references. We get Paz, who is dead, who is not there, who is not in this hospital, in this room that does not exist, with these people who are not talking to him, with these photos that aren't there. With, of course, you get some MSF members, of whom I assume Venom Snake is imagining are on base. He's like, oh yeah, I brought that guy back. Oh yeah, I brought that guy back. Oh yeah, no, I was able to bring so many people back because his biggest guilt is that he wasn't able to save people because he's a medic. He wasn't able to save Paz. He wasn't able to save, he in his mind, everyone else on that helicopter. He wasn't able to save a Chico. All of them died because he didn't find the second bomb. So he's racked with guilt. And so he literally goes to this wing of the medical wing of the base, and he's just standing in this room that does not exist, just talking and screaming about random things for everyone on base to see. You know what else is on that base? On that particular strut of the base? Quiet. They have a cage built for her. They have a cage with a toilet and a bathroom for a mute, invisible, sexy sniper. That is the literal definition of, oh yeah, I have a girlfriend, but you guys can't see her, but she goes to another school. That is the definition of that. Oh yeah, guys. Oh yeah, no, my girlfriend, she wears like, she's got like a bikini and, you know, leggings, and she's really good with a sniper, and she's quiet and she listens to everything I say, but you guys can't see her or hear her. And you know, honestly, like, you know, maybe someday you can, but like for now, you know, she doesn't want to be seen by y'all. And like, I don't think that the base is mad about Quiet being there. I think it's this perceived, it's this imaginary effect that you see in the real world right now, where like people are like, oh look, my imaginary friend is being insulted. How dare they? They just hate her. They hate my imaginary friend because of the truth she speaks. It's literally what we see on the internet all the time. She is the living definition of the current state of Twitter. So it's funny because she's basically just this male fantasy that exists as a male fantasy. She dances in the rain. She can snipe a cigar. You know, she does all these things that, you know, oh yeah, Venom Snake's totally into. And then if you see right here next to me, if you include the emblem she gets and you put that as your base emblem, she never disappears. She never goes away because you're always thinking of her and you're just diving deeper. Venom Snake's just diving deeper into his delusion. So he never lets her go. On top of this butterfly motif, her guns are literally called Guilty, Wicked, and Sinful Butterfly. Her emblem is a butterfly. Paz disappears into morpho butterflies, which I think is a reference to, there's another, I think, writer that like defines like the morpho butterfly is called something else, which is like his best friend, I think, or something. That was something else I saw. But even then, at the beginning of Ground Zeroes, the helicopter that comes and saves Big Boss, morpho. The helicopter is morpho, which hilariously enough, Ground Zeroes definitely seems to be the actual, like, the way Ground Zeroes is set up is that it's actually a simulation. It's the brainwashing that Venom Snake went through. And hi, Zool. Yeah, I'm going to put this up as a VOD, so you guys will have to watch the whole thing as a VOD later. But I just wanted to go on this rant. Because, like, okay, you have this brainwashing system with a helicopter called Morpho that supposedly comes and rescue Big Boss. It fails at the end of it. Like, the entire brainwashing fails. We know that, which they kind of mention at the end. Like, it's failed. It's all failed. It's not going to work. So he's partially brainwashed. He has shrapnel in his head. Almost all of the tapes are essentially lies and or imaginary. Like, especially when you find out that Paz is basically making modern tapes that you can listen to. Paz is the key of all of this. Without her, none of this can be figured out. But if you pay attention to her story, she's entirely imaginary, in an imaginary ward, in a place that doesn't exist, with a bunch of cutscenes that don't exist, with a bunch of tapes that don't exist. At that point, any cutscene, any action, any tape that is not marked as specifically being truth becomes entirely unreliable. You can't listen to them. You can't pay attention to them. So Quiet, imaginary friend. She's an imaginary friend. She's a male fantasy. She's a literal male fantasy. That's all. I kind of just hope that it's the most obvious thing. People pointed it out 10 years ago. Basically, yeah, it's the Reznov Mason thing from COD BO1. Yes, it's exactly that. Because think about it. Who's the first person she sees? Or who's the first person Venom sees when he wakes up? Like, the first actual face. Like, yeah, he sees the doctor. He sees the nurse. But what happens when she starts choking him during the hospital escape? You get her song, you get this beautiful motif of her, you get this wonderful color change, and then she's on fire and falls out of building. She's dead. She's not brought back by body parasites. She's not brought back to life. They didn't. What's his name didn't care. Skullface doesn't care. Skullface doesn't even care about Big Boss. He doesn't even care about Venom Snake. He didn't care to begin with. You know who he cared about? You know who Skullface cared about? Zero. He never said that Quiet had the vocal cord parasite. He never said that. Not at any point did they confirm that she has the vocal cord parasite. You know what they did say, though? They said it was close to Big Boss. So if Venom Snake is a believable Big Boss, who's his closest friend? It's not Quiet. It's not Ocelot. And it's certainly not Kaz. It's Zero. They were best friends. As much as Big Boss might not have seen it that way, Zero was the commanding officer in Metal Gear Solid 3. He was basically the lead operator for that entire mission to basically define the mission and all of that stuff. He becomes a bigger part of the story later on because he starts the L'Enfant Terrible project behind Big Boss's back. He also is constantly monitoring and working with Big Boss, even if Big Boss doesn't want it. He's the one that actually put Big Boss and Venom and Kaz in the hospital in Cyprus to make sure that Big Boss was hidden and safe. Regardless of what Big Boss's intention and desires were, Zero was constantly nearby. If not him directly, his tendrils, his little minions that he had around, including Skullface. So the vocal cord parasite was never given to Quiet. It was sent on the pin that was sent to Zero. And that's why he had Zero talk about the pin and tell him information about it. And it wasn't the actual pin that Zero asked for. He basically asked for this little pin that he was given that had a lot of sentimental value. And essentially what happened was, in the truth tapes, you have Skullface going on this big long like hey, well, tell me about it. What's the importance of that pin? What's it about? And he's like sitting there doing his little British conqueror thing of like, oh yeah, this pin, I got this. There's the scratch marks on the back of it, and it's got all of the amazing details. And he just goes on this big, long tirade about this pin and about how grateful he is that he has it in his possession again. And, they talk back and forth about things. And then Zero gets hit. Zero was speaking English. The goal was to destroy the English language. And it all started at Zero. And it's so subtly poignant. And it's such a missed aspect of the game. All of these legends, all of these stories, none of them actually matter in Metal Gear Solid 5. And it sucks because they pull the trope of, oh, it was all his imagination all along. And yeah, that was the point. Because you're being the legend of Big Boss. You're making a name for yourself. You're trying to convince everyone that Big Boss is back. So they have to have all these stories. They have to know about all these things happening. All of these things that were set up by Kaz. All of these things were set up by Kaz and Ocelot together. And Ocelot was brainwashing himself to believe anything that Venom Snake was saying. On top of the fact that Kaz also had some trouble seeing in bright light, like in daylight. And if you notice, most of the scenes where he's with Venom Snake and Ocelot, most of them are in the daylight, where he's going to struggle to see because of his eyesight issues. which is noted in Peace Walker, that he has those already, that issue already. But then it gets tremendously worse by the time of Phantom Pain because he was tortured and basically left out of all of the things. He did later on find out that he was being lied to, that it wasn't actually Venom Snake, and he's like, I'm just going to play along, I guess. Or that he wasn't actually Big Boss, he was Venom Snake. And he's like, I'm just going to play along, eventually we'll have to kill each other, but whatever. And that's it. Metal Gear Solid 5 is basically just a bunch of made-up shit where they pretend like they're the big dogs out in the middle of nowhere, talking about nonsense, essentially. And you have an imaginary girlfriend from another school that no one can see or hear. And then on top of that, if you take all of that combined, right? You take all of that combined, you get to the mission where Venom Snake goes through and, kills everyone on the base. Right? And that's what actually leads to this scene above.
Hydrate.
Where,
this is just a threat.
Yeah, let me get that really quickly, actually. Where you get to the scene where Venom is basically going through the base and murdering people, and it's for the vocal cord parasite, right? You're trying to defend from it. Doesn't exist either on the base. It's not there. It's Venom Snake having a freaking meltdown, thinking that something's there, pretending that something's there, killing all of his soldiers there, the ones that are about to find out that there is no vocal cord parasite on the base, and they're the only ones that know. And then they blame it all on Huey. And you know what's funny about Huey? He correctly calls everyone out. He is the boy who cried wolf. He is the boy who cried wolf in this situation. Because he's right. They hated him because he's right. Think about it. He points out that D-Dog isn't a dog, it's a wolf. He points out that it's not actually Big Boss. If you look closely, you know that was the case, and that they're just blindly following him. He knows that there's no vocal cord parasite. He knows that Quiet doesn't actually exist. He knows that this is all BS. He knows that Ocelot is just, being Ocelot. And at the end of the day, I think Venom realizes it too, and that's why they let him go. That's why they don't kill him, because I think Venom, in his heart of hearts, was like, no, this would be killing an innocent man. He's right, but I don't want to actually fully believe it. So what I'll do is I'll pretend like I have a heart. And he's like, no, we'll give him some food. We'll let him go, because he knows inside that it was him. He knows inside that the people that have been dying on the base, the people that have been harmed, it's him. And so, you end up in this situation where, yes, you are the demon. That is the point. You are the bad guy in the story because you're making shit up. You're basically killing your own people in fits of fury and rage and basically just, this moment of, schizophrenia in a way. And it's that's a bad way of putting it, but, they never call it that. So it's okay. It's that's the way to describe it, essentially. And it's he's basically no, I won't kill him because you know what? No, it's because we're good. We're better than him. That's why. And that's what he does. That's what Venom Snake does. And then he starts to have a lapse on it. Yeah. And then he starts to have a lapse on that. He starts thinking about, oh, I just killed all my people. So then he's got to become the hero. So what does Quiet do? Quiet lets him become a hero for a moment. And then, of course, if you don't have this emblem that's in the middle of the screen on your base, he then goes off to try and save her, to bring her back, because he doesn't want to let her go. And ultimately, he's in his head, he's like, no, this needs to stop. And so he lets her go. She walks off into the sunset. He imagines that he helped Pequod get to her, or get to him to rescue him. And he has this entire big story of oh yeah, no, Quiet, she saved me. And then you get back and there's no evidence Quiet is there. There's evidence that you built a cage. There's evidence that there's a toilet and a shower. But there's no evidence that she's there. There's no signs that have her on it. There's no sign that people said that they hated her. There's no picture of her in the mobile airbase. You know what we do have in the mobile airbase though? We have a picture of every other character. Huey, he's there. We have Liquid or whatever is Eli. All those people are there. So it's one of those things where it's like the more you look at it, you're like, no, Quiet's an imaginary friend. She doesn't exist. It's all in his head. All of the story was pointless, and it was basically to fill in like a couple of blank parts, which is okay. So wait, Snake was in a 9-year coma, and why didn't he stop L'Enfant Terrible? And what happened to Zero to put him into a weird coma at the end of MGS4? And that's it. That's really all the game answers. And what happened to let's see, what else? Like, what happened to all these other people? Yeah, you know, so like, and we don't get any of those answered. It's basically just a bunch of people fucked around in the, was it the Seychelles? I forget. They messed around in the ocean. They and they basically just caused a scene, and that's it. And then that leads into Metal Gear 1, where you kill a fake body double, and that's it. So that's all. Like, I think there's maybe one more thing that they clarify, but that's it. Because you have imaginary weapons that are way better, that are just like anagrams of real world weapons. They're not actual weapons, so they're all imaginary in a way. You can put them together in any which way, which is just nonsense. They don't fit together logically. You have, it's literally like they say it at the beginning of the game. They're like, yeah, there's a lot of parts of this game that are just imaginary, and you'll just have to recognize it. But he never points it out, which means that the only assumptions are the following: either it doesn't really happen that often, or it's the entire game, and it only makes sense if it's the entire game. Well, that's the thing. I don't think the Eli mission was ever supposed to be finished. I think that was just another little ploy of his. Because here's the thing, logically, it doesn't fit into the story at all. It's the story that could have been, but didn't, because he let go of his fantasy, he never finished his story. That's the thing. I feel like that was intentional. I feel like the point of getting rid of Quiet was intentional. I feel like them bringing it so you can have her come back is more or less a Venom Snake. You're basically, as the player, Venom Snake, going back into your delusion. You're falling back into bad habits. Things are getting rough, and you need Quiet back, so you bring her back. Like, that's my thoughts. And it makes way more sense if you just look at it that way. Like, that's the only way the story makes sense. Because it's such a red herring that it's about, like, oh, she gets energy through her skin. No, that's it's a lie. It's a propaganda tool to allow for Snake to be like, oh, well, why would, like, if someone asks, well, why would there be a sexy sniper in the forest or in the desert shooting things for you? Yeah, no, it's easy to say that. Like, it's the fact that it's bullshit that's the story. It is bullshit. She's a male fantasy. She's a literal male fantasy. And I'm not going to say it's genius, but I do think it's something that a lot of people miss. And it's kind of funny to me. Like, because I think, like, what was it, a year or two ago, I saw another Kotaku article. It's like, oh yeah, it's been 10 years and Quiet's still dumb. And I'm like, that's because you missed the point. She was never real. She was never there. And that's why everything's empty. That's why everything's just, because I actually have a thought that the civilians are there. That's what I think. I think there are civilians there. He just doesn't see them. Because the only thing that Venom Snake cares about are the soldiers on the battlefield. So it's like, in lore, it makes more sense. We know it's a technical reason. It's because of the PS3. But like, I think in lore, it makes sense. Which, that's kind of what Kojima's good at. Kojima's good around writing, is good about writing around technical limitations of hardware. So, yeah, that's it. That's the rant. So, that's all I wanted to do. This went on way longer than I thought it would, but yeah, that's it. TLDR, Quiet's not real. Both the people that hate her and the people that love her need to get over that and realize that she's, she's an imaginary friend for a man with brain damage. And that the entire reason Also, this is the other big thing. The entire reason why Kojima said that you'll be ashamed of your words and deeds isn't because you're making fun of Quiet. It's because you're making fun of a man with brain damage. Why are you insulting a man with brain damage? Why are you making such a big deal about a male fantasy? No, Viking, you're not imaginary. But yeah, that's it. That's really it. It's basically just a big waste of time for arguing about her and being upset about her, and that's it. That's the shame. It's not because, oh, she breathed through his skin. No, it's literally just, it was pointless and stupid, and the entire game was stupid, and Kojima didn't want to make it. And then he made it. And so he made it about how he, about basically like, yeah. And then he also filled out like, yeah, no, it's like something that was there. Like I noticed it like 10 years ago. A lot of people noticed it like 10 years ago. And then it just never came up. And so like, and like everyone missed the point of all of it. And it's just so interesting to me because they skipped the pause story. The pause story is the most important story of the game, in my opinion, because of that. But yeah, the like, yeah, it's the, you know, you have the story of Ahab and Pequod and Ishmael and all that stuff, right? But like the big part is actually just the Morpho butterfly. That's actually, she's the spiritual guide. She's his guide. She's his guidance. So that's it. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to go back to moderating Fox's stream. She's playing more Dead by Daylight, so go give her some support. And I'll see you guys probably tomorrow, hopefully. So talk to you later.